Hey everyone, it's Derek Weeks, co-founder of All Day DevOps, and I'm here with yet another speaker preview for All Day DevOps. I'm really excited this evening to be talking with Scott Coulton, who is a couple hours outside of Sydney in Australia. So I had to stay up late on Sunday night, and he has a middle of the day task here to come and talk to us before All Day DevOps starts off in just a couple of days. So Scott, welcome to the program tonight.
Thanks for having me, Derek.
Yeah, super excited with All Day DevOps coming up. Just before we got on air here, I mentioned to Scott, we just crossed 23,000 registrations. So we're super excited to see all the momentum building around the conference. And as part of the conference, you get to interact with people like Scott. He's the principal software engineer at Puppet. He's going to be speaking around, did you say noon your time?
8 a.m. my time in Sydney. So it's about dinner time, I believe you said.
Yeah. So we will look forward to that, as we will not be eating on the air in front of you during your session, but good food is coming in for the All Day DevOps crew. But anyway, regardless of that, Scott, you have a presentation coming up at All Day DevOps. What are you going to be talking to everyone about this year?
This year I'm talking about orchestrating the orchestrator, which is actually tackling some of the issues if you want to deploy Kubernetes securely. So I break down a whole heap of basically what the talk come about, or how I built this application was, one of my VPs of engineering said, if you could build Kubernetes anyway securely, how would you do it? So I walked through the different ways we looked at it, whether it be on top of Containerd, with the Cry plugin, Docker as a runtime, on Core OS, on a traditional OS, or on a cut down OS. Then looking at, like, if you only want to run containers, how can you do truly immutable infrastructure? And we look at building like an OS with containers towards the very end. So it's a whole heap about Kubernetes security and the best way to deploy it, or the best way we think at Puppet, well, my team has found out to deploy Kubernetes. So not too dissimilar to what they're doing in SIG API, but we're working on this before we saw that SIG group. So we're going to circle back around and talk to them about it.
Yeah, so Kubernetes has been a hot topic over the last year, and certainly probably the last couple of years. But we heard so much in the different communities that we participate. We changed our modern infrastructure track to cloud native track to highlight a lot of the Kubernetes talks this year. And security has been a really big concern as well. Just in general as a topic, but I think with Kubernetes as well. So is this a journey that you're going to talk about? So a journey that you're on, or a journey that you kind of started and worked through to the end?
No, this is something that we worked through to the end, and we've got a finished artifact at the moment that we can share a local demo of it running for you to run on a laptop. We have got further applications that are going to use this further on down the point, that down the track, that will probably release more towards KubeCon. But the actual bit that I'm talking about is actually finished, and yeah, we've worked out a way to securely deploy a Kubernetes cluster, have operational overhead at a bare minimal for the OS, and have security as good as we can get it. Not saying it's impenetrable, but we've sat down and thought about a lot of things, and I think it's as good as we can get it in the current state. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the result.
Excellent. I know when I was following John Willis around to a couple of different conferences we were both speaking at earlier in the spring, and this was one of his big concerns with what, we were talking a lot about DevSecOps practices, and he said, one of my really big concerns is Kubernetes, that people are adopting it all over the place. People are saying, hey, this is a great platform where I can roll as many containers out as I want, and then I have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of containers out there, but how do you control security in these environments? What was your biggest surprise as you kind of got into this, or your biggest aha moment that you discovered or you had to work through?
Probably the biggest aha moment because I'm a Docker captain, so I work closely with the guys on Containerd, and I'm like really into kernel level stuff and low level runtimes. That's just like a hobby of mine, and I absolutely love it. But working on Kubernetes and just speaking to some customers and stuff, like they didn't know if you had Docker as a default runtime that you could have AppArmor or SE Linux policies to protect the 90% of your use cases for your containers out of the box with a single command in a pod definition. And I was like, that's crazy that people don't know that there's security defaults that you can turn on with like just a single line in the YAML file. So when we started to look at that, we were thinking like, how can we put more of an abstraction over it? So like an end-to-end security profile for like the Kubernetes orchestrator. And that's kind of what we work towards and what we come up with.
And do you have a security background yourself, or you just got into this and it was a task that was laid in front of you?
And I don't have an official security background, but I've worked in a few jobs. So I've worked in one job that I was like the lead engineer or engineering manager for a PCI environment. Then I went to another job, my last job before Puppet, and I was working in Australian government healthcare. So I was a solution architect that looked after the container platform there. So I've had like lots of security sprinkled in on top of my last jobs. And then this come up with Puppet, and I was like, oh yeah, I can do a bit of security. And then done a few talks around the place. And actually the day after this conference, I'm flying down to Melbourne to do a talk on kernel level security at a security conference. So if people are asking me to talk about stuff, I suppose I kind of know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was not like I set out to do security. It's just that it was something I picked up, and I've been okay at it, I suppose, because people keep asking me questions about it. So yeah, I'm not officially a security person. I'm a software engineer, but I do always think about security because it's been ingrained in me from those jobs like PCI and being in healthcare.
Yeah, I'm not a security person either, but I've ended up talking about DevSecOps at conferences more times than I can remember. But you know, the cool thing about it is you always meet other people that give you different perspectives and kind of share something or start to ask you questions. It's like, never really thought about that. Maybe I should go and read some more or go and talk to that person that they mentioned and learn some more. So it's kind of nice to be out on the circuit sharing this this information and exchanging ideas with people.
It definitely is, because I think from all the spaces that have seen disruption lately, I think security is the one that's going through it the most at this current time. So if you have a look at like a traditional security like end-to-end process that people would have, well, containers have completely disrupted that. So like with applications like Notary, Claire vulnerability scanning, all that, you can actually start to have your security posture before you even deploy instead of trying to secure it after. So I think that that's the biggest disruption that they're seeing. So you're seeing a lot more people that are working hands on the container ecosystem tools, like Liz Rice and a few other people that are talking about more of a security focus than like what you would see in traditional security. And I think it's just because of the disruption. But after that, I think it'll start to calm down. It's kind of like when DevOps first come out for the infrastructure people.
Yeah, and I think this is at some point with DevSecOps or DevOps, really, this is the first point where a lot of people like you are touching security and need to touch security, and it's not necessarily the security group coming to say, hey, we want to work with you hand in hand on this, but more, maybe I'm in a place where I have to figure it out myself. So I'm sure you'll have a ton of questions on Slack after your presentation that will be interesting to field, not only from the cloud native track, but the DevSecOps track people that might be watching your session as well. So just quickly, October 17th, it's 8 a.m. Sydney time, so it'll be the Wednesday evening for us here in the US. Definitely looking forward to seeing your talk. As I tell everyone that's out there listening, make sure you register yourself, then encourage your teammates to come and register, because it's not only showing up and watching, it's interacting on Slack. It's being able to talk to the speakers. All of the speakers are already on Slack. So you'll have a great chance to interact with them and others from the community. Scott, you mentioned, just as we close out here, you mentioned a demo that people could get a hold of. Is that something that you guys have made available on GitHub, and you'll be able to share the link on Slack for those sessions?
Definitely will. It's on my last slide, the link to be able to pick it up, and you'll be able to get there and play with it. Two reasons for that. One, we'd love to hear your feedback and hope that we've done a good job, because we've only spoken to like a small subset of our customers to get UX feedback and a few other bits. And second, and just see if people out there think it's a good idea, want to contribute, or just want to play with it. So love to hear that feedback, and if they take their time, we're more than willing to answer questions at any time about it.
Super. All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing your presentation on October 17th. And that's it for now. All Day DevOps will be back again shortly, and join us live October 17th. Thanks.